So each year, Arkansas Advocates honors the work of Arkansans whose work on behalf of children is exemplary, both in impact and in scope. The Friends of Children Award honors those who've made ensuring opportunities for children central to their life's work and personal missions. And each of today's honorees have dedicated their professional and personal lives to leveling the playing field so that all of our children have the resources and opportunities they need to succeed and thrive. So let's celebrate the contributions of this year's incredible honorees. You can read their bios in the program, and we invited people who know them well to tell you about them in a series of short videos. First up is State Senator Joyce Elliott, who at an age far too early was made aware of the vicious inequalities of life in the South, influencing her lifelong choice of careers in teaching and politics. Senator Elliott's focus has always been on building world-class public education systems, criminal justice reform, and standing up for justice and equity. Though she's leaving the Senate at the end of 2022 due to term limits, she has already started the next chapter of her life's work. Get Loud Arkansas registers voters all across our state this year and is working to get voters to the polls. We should all strive to get a little bit more like Joyce Elliott, working with people and for people, working to ensure that every Arkansan has an equitable opportunity to succeed. Senator Joyce Elliott, come on up here for the announcement, our Executive Director, to receive your award.
Thank you, Rich, and thank Advocates and Rhodey. I know you must have had kind of contemplations about something you wanted to say that you did not, so I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And I'm looking at all of you and I'm thinking, do I know all these people? But whether I do or I don't, I appreciate all of the love and your using your time to be here. Because every single time, and there have been a lot of single times, and every single time I have run for office because there was always another election, and you divvied up, you checked your wallets, you gave what you could. Some of you knocked on doors for me, and you've done a lot of things to help me do the work that I've been able to do. But here's where I started. When I was 8 years old, I was 8 years old, a criminal. You heard right. 8 years old, a criminal. And that's for real. Because here I am, growing up in the South, having done nothing to be born as I was. But yet, I was a criminal the day I decided in the courthouse in Magnolia, Arkansas, close to where I grew up, in Louisville, and I'm not saying in Louisville, I decided this is the day I have to find out what's in that water fountain. And I waited for my mother, because I knew my mother had to go upstairs. When my mother went around that curve to go upstairs, and I've been hanging back, just like a little common criminal, hanging back, that when she disappears, this is my moment. She did, and there in front of me were the two water fountains that I'd seen all my life at that point. And all my life I had asked people, why is this? And obviously, to me now, nobody could make sense of that, because it didn't make sense. Nobody could explain it to me because it was crazy. So I took off as an 8-year-old kid, took off of that water fountain, and ran so hard, because today was the day for me, my coming out. And I ran so hard that I hit my face on the wall, but I was not hurt. I'm drinking this water. And I did. And suddenly I looked down and the water was running red, and I thought, oh boy, I knew it. Now, y'all would have thought I would have understood that was blood, but I didn't. I'm 8 years old, and I am on adrenaline, folks, because I'm a criminal for sure by now, because I'm drinking the water. And suddenly, though, I realized the thing I had harbored inside of me all this time was not true. I thought that surely in that fountain from which I could not drink, there had to be strawberry Kool-Aid. That's the thought I had all this time as a kid, because I'm trying to make sense of things. And I suddenly realized it was not sweet. And it was at that moment I became so angry that the thing I had known for sure had to be the difference was that this one had strawberry Kool-Aid and I'd been consigned to just drinking water. And then the fear set in, because indeed this criminal knew she was about to be caught. And sure enough, I turned around, my nose is bloody, my clothes are bloody, and it's not strawberry Kool-Aid. And there's this old black man standing there when I turned around, shaking as if he was had been hit by the wind of a tornado, because he knew then too I was a common criminal. And he did everything he could to clean me up and get me ready for my mother to come back down those stairs. And when my mother did, I looked halfway presentable, but he couldn't get all the blood, and mainly for shaking. But he cleaned up everything, cleaned up that fountain, and put everything back in the closet, all the rags and stuff he used to clean me. But I tell you, that was a seminal moment in my life when I just simply couldn't get a drink of water from either water fountain I chose. Because right above it, it told me who I was and what I was permitted to do and not permitted to do. So that stayed with me. But it stayed with me as I became an adult about how children need to have champions. How much better Arkansas could be if children had early starts to be the best in all they can be. It's part of the reason I remained in Arkansas. It's part of the reason I have been a champion of children as a school teacher. I had a young man in my class as a school teacher. I'm teaching junior high and senior high students who was just run out of a free public school education because he was LGBTQ and refused to hide it. A young man that I needed to shelter and take care of the way that old man took care of me. But that should never have happened to that child. And there are so many of those kind of stories, but just in general. When I was in the 10th grade, I read this quote by Horace Mann, given a speech in 1809 at Antioch University graduation. And I never forgot this quote when I read it, and what it says is what I tried to live by. You should be ashamed to die until you've made, basically, I'm adding, a radical, positive contribution to humanity. I've been privileged to serve humanity, but mainly through the kids, their possibilities, and what this day can be. Thank you so much, advocates. Thank every single one of you.
I don't think you're a criminal. I think that was just either a high crime or a misdemeanor. So it didn't keep you out of public office, for sure. There's some hugging.
common criminal.
Congratulations. Our next honoree retired a few weeks ago for about the 14th time as president and CEO of the Arkansas Foundation for Medical Care. Ray Hanley's lifetime of work for children and families has made a real difference to thousands of Arkansans. As director of Arkansas Medicaid, Ray led the creation of the nationally recognized Our Kids First program, making health care affordable for working families. In addition to his commitment to improving health care for Arkansans, Ray has written books, traveled extensively, and competed in marathons. He recently returned from a post-retirement bike ride along the Mississippi River from Minnesota all the way south back to Arkansas. He says he'll finish the trip down to the Gulf Coast soon, and I cannot wait to see what new career you take off in next, Ray Hanley.
Thank you, Roby. Following Senator Elliott is a tough act. I'll tell you. You know, I cannot begin to replicate her story. You know, I mean, I grew up poor in a small town in Arkansas with parents that needed to, one finished the 8th grade. I didn't have health insurance until I was out of college, selling tires at Firestone. But I feel enormously blessed to have worked with all the people that I have over the years. It's a real honor to be recognized today. My association with Arkansas Advocates, in one form or the other, goes back to its beginning, 45 years ago. When Arkansas Advocates started, I was a foster care caseworker in a decommissioned church on Louisiana office. That's where I met Jim Miles, who's here today, one of the founders of Arkansas Advocates. Jim and his wife Patricia were foster parents, and I knew if I couldn't find a place anywhere else for a kid, I could call Jim and Patricia. I've had a chance to work with some of the real pioneers of Arkansas Advocates, and Dr. Gil Buchanan comes to mind, who I worked with as a medical director at Medicaid, Arkansas Advocates. We conspired to create the TEFLA program, which I put him in charge of. I think about Amy, who was on the video. If there were ever a fun conspirator things, it's Amy Willis. And it's especially an honor today to share this recognition with Senator Elliott, who I've admired for many years. And I think somebody finally called her once the lioness of the Senate, which they meant as a high compliment, and I certainly would have taken it that way. I want to recognize my own family that's here today because they've been along for the ride that's been my career. My wife Diane, who retired as a occupational therapist with the child psych unit at UAMS, a psychiatric unit a couple of years ago, which is where she and I actually met in 1981. And no, I was not one of her patients. My daughters, Rachel Glenn, who is a pediatric OT. My daughter Emily, who is a radiation therapist at Carti. My cousin from Louisiana, Ines Carnick, who's a retired health educator, which is all to say I'm the only one in my family that doesn't have a license to practice in some form. I also want to recognize the AFMC team. I was privileged to lead for 12 years. They've got a table here. Who's done remarkable work, and I was pleased to be able to hand that off to very able John Seelig a couple of months ago. Looking ahead and thinking about Advocates' mission, there is no shortage of causes that Arkansas Advocates can work on. Whether it's the massive Medicaid re-enrollment or disenrollment, can't stem the tide coming. Leading the nation in children in poverty, poor health status, trying to ensure access to care. Arkansas Advocates is going to have to be in the forefront of this, but in a coalition with a lot of other people to do what needs to be done. And with that, I thank you for the honor of being here, and I look forward to helping where I can. Thank you.
Ray, you may want to get a copy of that video they played of you too. I know that super up there said it was David Rosen, but I swear it looked like Ernest Hemingway, man. Old man in the seat. I want to thank Ray and Joyce, obviously, both of our honorees today, for making health and well-being of Arkansas's future generations a top priority. We're not done with you all yet. We're going to, in a little while, get you guys up here on stage for a little Q&A, but not right now. I'd like to, at this time, invite Board President Ryan Davis to the stage to introduce Executive Director Rich Huddleston.
Can we applaud our honorees one more time? My favorite things that, and I don't impose it something, but I want to say it anyway. My favorite things that Jesus said about children is that anybody who does wrong by a child would be better off tying a millstone to their neck and being thrown into the sea. God forbid any of us should wrong a child that way. Even in our policies, even in the way that we budget, our society is judged by how we treat the least of these. Children who stand on the margins, children who go hungry every day, children who live with their backs against the wall. Grateful for your example, and God bless you. So time is, Reverend Kilburn, I love the hymns. One of my favorite one begins, time is filled with swift transition. And it is, I say, I heard y'all hold. I was fine with that one line. And so I say that by way of saying it's with a mix of sadness, but of gratitude and also great acclaim that I stand before you today to thank Executive Director Rich Huddleston for the past 27 years of service to Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, and thus to the children and families of the state of Arkansas. Give it up for Rich. Rich Huddleston, who began as the Director of Research and Policy before becoming Executive Director in 2004, has been instrumental in this organization's efforts to improve the lives of children and families across the state of Arkansas. He's continued in this generous spirit all of this year, leading us in our important work and giving the board a long runway to search for the next executive director to lead Arkansas Advocates into the future. I want to take just a couple of minutes to highlight a few of the significant policy wins for children that have come about during Rich's tenure at Arkansas Advocates. One, the expansion of quality pre-K schools in this state. I see it in Lee County and Crittenden County, with my mother-in-law directed the preschool. 3 increases in the state minimum wage, making the tax system fairer for low-income families, the expansion of health care coverage for adults with low incomes, access to children's health care coverage for the Marshallese and other immigrant community children, juvenile justice reform, school discipline reform, the list goes on. I think that bears another round of applause. And now without further ado, I don't introduce Ricky, you're beyond introduction. I present to you our fearless leader, Executive Director, Rich Huddleston.
Well, thank you, Ryan, and thank you so much. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize a few groups. I'm not going to give a speech today because we're going to have an excellent panel up here, so I'm going to try and keep my comments brief. First, I would like to thank Ryan and our board of directors. This group provides the governance and guidance to our organization. They really are responsible for helping set our legislative and our policy agenda, as well as our long-term strategic directions. It is through their expertise, insight, and vision that our advocacy remains targeted, relevant, and strong. Will all the board members that are here today please stand so folks can see who you are and recognize you. So, advocates board, please stand. Thank you. We're also very fortunate at Arkansas Advocates to have an incredibly talented and committed staff. If you are on the staff of Arkansas Advocates, will you please stand so those folks who don't know you can see. I know that I'm leaving Arkansas Advocates. I'm in good hands with this group. And finally, everybody else in the room. I think one of the greatest honors I've had in my time at Arkansas Advocates is that in addition to working with great board members, great staff, is I've had the opportunity to work with many committed partners, many of whom are in the audience today, but also many committed advocates who even if you're not part of the group, you've gone out of your way to making phone calls and things like that to really help promote our work, but more importantly, to really have an impact on advocacy. So that's what I would like for you to do is to give you all a round of applause. So please do that. And those of you who are in the room today who hold an elected office or who are currently running for an elected office, will you please stand so folks can see who you are? So if you're running for office, if you're currently in office, please stand. All of us at Arkansas Advocates genuinely appreciate your service and your commitment to making Arkansas better. Thanks for your tireless efforts. Especially those of you who work in the legislature, because working in the legislature is tough, from what I understand. So, oops. I'm going to ask a couple more things from the folks in the audience today. One, of course, we do have an upcoming legislative session that begins in January. And speaking on behalf of the staff and the board, we're going to need you all to step up even more your efforts on advocacy. Arkansas Advocates, of course, has a legislative agenda that we'll be working to try and get passed. That legislative agenda is available on our website if you want to check that out. But just as importantly, we know we're going to have a lot of really bad bills that will get introduced that, if they were to pass, could have a negative impact on children and families. And so some of those are going to require a lot of work to keep them getting passed. So I'm going to ask that you step up your efforts on advocacy even more. And then the second thing I'm going to ask you is to increase your investment in the work of Arkansas Advocates and help us promote better public policies for kids. There are a couple of ways you can do that. One is you can text the word advocate to the number 243-725. Again, that's 243-725, and there'll be a link that you can click on. Of course, you can write a check and pass it off to the staff member on your way out, or you can go to our website using the QR code that should be available on your tables somewhere, and make a donation that way. So we, of course, Arkansas Advocates really needs contributions to keep our work going. And it's really important during a legislative session because we generally can't lobby with foundation grants during the legislative session. And then finally, as I leave here, I'd like to leave you with a video celebrating 45 years of advocating for Arkansas children and families.
I hope that inspires you to open up your pocketbooks and give a little bit more, because that's what we're going to spend the next minute or two here asking you to do. There's a lot of different ways that you can donate to support Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, as we've talked about. Every dollar does make a difference. And I'll just put this one out there right now. Whoever is the top donation today, I'm going to find one of those Arkansas Advocates puzzles, and that will be your prize. Can we do that, Rich? You got one of those? I know how to make them. If we have all right, Brooke says we're good. So, all right. So all of this happens just because of the support that you all provide. Our goal today is to raise $4,500 at this luncheon. So that's in honor of 45 years. Let's see if we can raise $4,500. I know we can get there. Again, to contribute, text advocate to 243-725, 243-725, type the word advocate. You'll get a link by text, and then it's easy to make your gift from there. There's also that picture in your program that shows you how to do it. I stole the QR code, which is why Rich didn't find it earlier up here on the podium, because I had slipped it in my pocket, not realizing that Rich was going to need it later. I'm sorry about that, Rich. We can turn this into a puzzle too. So, and we are also happy to take your cash or your check on the way out the door. So just hand it to a staff member. If you want to make a gift and remain anonymous, there's actually a button in the text link if you'll text to do that too. So at this time, I'm going to invite our two honorees, Senator Joyce Elliott and Ray Hamlin, to come back up on the stage for a Q&A with me to talk a little bit more about this prestigious award they received and their lifetime helping children and families. And you can hold your applause. No, you can cheer for them. Nice to see you. Congratulations. Nice to see you. Congratulations. So I'm proud for both of y'all. So before we kind of dive into a few things, I think one of those, to me, I've been in Arkansas politics for 30 years, and one of the seminal moments in Arkansas politics that I remember that moved me greatly involved Arkansas Advocates for Children and Family. It involved Amy Rossi when she was the executive director. And she went to a press conference with Governor Mike Huckabee. You were the Medicaid director in the state of Arkansas. I don't think you were in the legislature yet, but you were paying attention. And Amy challenged Governor Huckabee to start a children's self-insurance program in the state of Arkansas, what became Our Kids First. Can you describe a little bit of that?
Yeah, it's actually more convoluted than that. Governor Tucker had started a committee to find ways to cut the Medicaid program. And then Governor Huckabee took over roughly, and he came to the next meeting of this group, which was in St. Vincent's. It's a room full of white guys in suits that are going to essentially tell the governor to cut everybody to the knee. And Amy Comey went forward and said, well, you know, instead of cutting, why don't you ask the governor to just expand Medicaid for kids? And said, you know, we got a new Republican governor. I'm not sure how that'll play. You asked the question. So she got up in this room full of, you know, white guys in suits. I think maybe she stood on the chair. I don't know. But she asked the governor and said, you know, instead of cutting Medicaid, why don't you expand coverage to kids? The governor thought about it, said, well, you know, he looked at me, can we do that? I said, well, yeah, we can do that. And he said, well, you know, it would be good for education. If they're healthy, they'll learn. We need to do that. And by the time I got back to my office, he had a name for it, Our Kids First. I said, that's a good name. And that's how it got started, because Amy was willing to get up in a room full of people there talking about cutting Medicaid and saying we need to use Medicaid kids.
We will embarrass Amy by offering her a round of applause for that. What do you think that program has meant for the kids at this age?
I think it's something that has made such a huge difference in so many kids' lives. I mean, because they literally would not have had health care. You know, so many kids know what that's like. So many adults probably in a year know what it's like to have gone through childhood. And if something happened that you needed health care, there may be a remedy out somewhere in the pasture or where we're going to pick things and make remedies for you. But I think that's a game changer because you don't make the huge changes you need to make unless you take care of the foundation. And I want to just shout out to Amy because so many times the hard question is left to the woman. Thank you, Amy.
For those of you who can't say Amy, just give a big thumbs up and
One more aspect of our kids. You know, about 1990, found an obscure regulation that let us put children's hospital on full cost reimbursement. But then the majority of kids didn't have any coverage. But then when our kids first came along, 60% plus had coverage. Children's Hospital at full cost reimbursement, inpatient and out, was really poised to grow. And it's helped make one of the premier pediatric hospitals in the country here in Arkansas, and our kids first. And this provision, full cost reimbursement, made that happen. So without our kids first, we wouldn't have as much of a world-class medical facility as we've got here in Northwest Arkansas.
All right, that's your history lesson for today. Now we will go to what you need to know about the future. So, Senator Elliott, I'll come to you first with this question. Even though you are exiting the state legislature, you obviously will have a finger on the pulse of this. What are some of the potential policy questions that you think we're going to be grappling with in the near term, for example, next legislative session? And then I want you to say that, but I'm going to ask you a longer term question after that.
I think in the near term, I hope everybody, even when you hear the athletes say, I've been training, I think I'm ready, and all this kind of stuff. We are kind of in a new era of having to do more than we want to require of ourselves to make sure we continue to have folks who are going to push forward those programs, especially those that are so foundational for children who live in poverty. You may not allow yourself to say, I just don't want to bother with it, it's just too much trouble. Those folks are crazy or whatever you might have in your head that you are never going to say out loud, promise me. Because there are people with very, very divergent views from a lot of the people in this room. But the children and the families who need you are not responsible for that divergence. It continues to be our responsibility to step into that breach. Because folks who were not around, for example, when our kids first passed, or when we extended Medicaid, do not have the history, and in many cases do not have the background of this state in a way to know that there are people who still need the Medicaid extension as much as they did when we first did so. And there are people who believe deeply that everybody should just be on their own. There are people who still believe that we are in this world of rugged individualism. And we haven't been that way since we settled the Wild West, so to speak. So I more than policies are going to be great. We are going to have the great ideas. We don't have the great ideas from advocates, for example. But getting it done is what bothers me more than anything. Because we tend to feel pretty good about ourselves sometimes. You know, I just don't know how to talk to those people. I just don't know how to work with those people. well, okay, get over it, find out how, because the children of the state are going to need you to that, and so are other vulnerable populations.
Ray, same question to you. Do you see some things on the near-term horizon in terms of potential policy that could impact children and families, and what this room needs to be prepared for heading into next year?
Yeah, and a couple of things, and I think they're interlinked. Once the election's over, the public health emergency will be declared in, which means you have a massive re-enrollment of Medicaid, because nobody's been taken off the rolls for the last 2.5 years. AACF working now, has been for months, to try to contact these people and talk about getting them re-enrolled. But estimates say as many as 300,000 people could lose coverage, which is just catastrophic for the providers and others. And the second issue is medical inflation over the last couple of years has far outstripped the CPI. And everybody knows what it is at the grocery store and other things. But the cost of running a hospital has gone way, way up during the pandemic. Nurses' salaries, those costs aren't coming down anytime soon, which puts tremendous pressure on insurance premiums, but also the Medicaid, Medicare fee schedule. Unless those fee schedules are adjusted upwards, it's going to be very hard on hospitals. And 55% of the people in Arkansas are on either Medicaid or Medicaid. So that tells you what the universe is. And unless these fees are adjusted, it's going to create access problems and a lot of hardship on providers. And that's going to be a legislative issue as well as a congressional.
You want to speak to that?
Yes, because we've already had some discussion about hospitals and the imminent danger they're in right now. And we've closed some hospitals, county hospitals, over the years. And we don't have consensus as a legislature. We really don't have consensus around we really need to fund these hospitals. And I think it would be a good thing if you could be helpful in getting legislators to think about the state as a whole, like that puzzle that we saw. Think of the state as a whole, that it's not just about my hospital, it's about everybody's hospital. And if we could just be pushed to think about priorities in terms of people and they're having a higher quality of life, I think that would help us begin to imagine ways to fund hospitals, to fund schools, to make sure we have teachers, to make sure we have housing. We have so many things that we need to do. I don't mean to put it all on advocates' plate, but that's where so many things do begin. Because one thing that could be true in the state we chose to do so, we could have a world-class education system in the state. It's a choice we're making. But on the way to that, this is the last thing I want to say about that, is because I know Denise Garner is going to require me to say something about pre-K. I do think it's so important that we not drop the ball on continuing to make sure we have world-class, high-quality pre-K for all the kids in our state. It's the same thing. Every time somebody tries to convince me we don't need to spend money on pre-K, even starting from birth, I always ask them, why do you do it for your children if it's not that bad? Why do you spend all that time and money? I want you to then, when you are going to have grandchildren, be sure you instruct your sons and daughters not to spend their time on pre-K type stuff, and see how that goes over. The same thing is true for everybody else's child in the state.
I want to plant a seed with this audience in the room today. I want to plant a seed with everyone in this audience, everyone in the audience in this room today, and I want to get your take on this. I think that sometimes when things can't get accomplished at the state legislature, because there's not enough consensus, there's not enough votes, there still is an opportunity for the citizens to lead initiatives to get things changed. We've done that with healthcare in the past, as you all will remember. But I think on things like pre-K or early childhood education or particular health issues, there is a way to marshal enough support to get this done at the ballot box. I'd love to get your take, both of you, on just how politics plays out in the Capitol and what those options are beyond that. Do you think there could be popular support for some things that the legislature might not do?
Well, if you think back to the chart program that Tom Butler was very involved in, that dedicated all the tobacco revenue to health, which made possible the College of Public Health. You only need to look back in history to know what's possible and what can be done. But by the same token, there's an amendment on the ballot this time that requires a 60% threshold to do any constitutional amendment, which is an intentional hurdle to make an initiated referendum harder to do. But by the same token, there's enough coalition involving Arkansas Advocacy and the others to hopefully lead some of this if the legislature does not act.
I know before I say anything else, I do want to lift up the fact that there are several of my colleagues here today that I want to acknowledge and appreciate for being here. But these are good people that, just take a look at them if you don't know them, so you know them, because they are people who will help push the agendas so many times that advocacy is setting forward. Well, I think we underestimate our ability to do what should be done when the legislature fails to do it. Because you kind of like all is lost. I wish we'd look in the mirror time and time again and remember how much power we have when we work together. Because we've done some, we wouldn't have, for example, when we wanted to pass the minimum wage, just because people cared enough about it, they were willing to get out and do the work. And going forward, I think that's the same thing we're going to have to keep doing, because we do have so little consensus so many times in the legislature. I think about issue 2 that Ray just mentioned. And I want you to think about it this way. If it weren't very possible for you to make the changes that we need to make in the legislature doesn't, nobody would be trying to raise the ante on being able to do that. Because the legislature is doing so, making it harder for you to do it, because you can do it. And you've demonstrated time and time again that we can do it. So, first of all, think about what issue 2 means. I'm going to be political about it, but just think about what it means. And then secondly, you are the reason issue 2 exists. And that says that somebody else knows your power, that perhaps you have not embraced yourself the way you should. You can absolutely do this. Make those changes.
I'm working on an analysis piece right now, and the minimum wage has 70% of the vote when it passes. So even if it gets that 60 passes, you can still accomplish things that have great consensus. So don't even be discouraged. Do what you need to do politically on that. All right. Ray Hanley, Senator Joyce Elliott, thank you all for sharing your comments. Once again, congratulations on your work. Thank everyone who has given here today. I want you to know, I just got a text from the back of the room. We are over $8,000 raised. So we're representing the Arkansas Advocates have been around for 80 years at this point. I had a great aunt named Aunt Mamie back in the day, and on her 95th birthday, I was sitting with her and we were talking, and she said, "Roby, once you hit 90, it's all downhill." So, keep that in mind. All right, we would not have had a successful event today without all of you in this room, without all of you watching us through the live stream, all your generosity and gifts that you've given to us. I want to once again congratulate our honorees. I want to thank our board president, Ryan Davis, and executive director, Rich Huddleston. I want to thank Arkansas Advocates board members and staff. I want to remind you that Soup Sunday is coming. The dates are in your program, or I have not stolen that, like I did the QR code. Remember to stay engaged. The children of Arkansas are definitely counting on all of you in this room. Thank you again for joining us today and supporting us throughout the year. And with that, we are dismissed.